To director, from Chicago, Richard Cain. As Bureau aware, captioned subject was at one time possibly most corrupt law enforcement officer in history of Chicago. WHO worked under personal direction of Sam Giancana when Giancana was boss of organized crime in Chicago. Cain is individual WHO plotted route of Giancana when Giancana went to Mexico and WHO made all of Giancana's arrangements there. He has been identified as actual member of organized crime here and believed to be responsible for several murders. Cain was convicted of bank robbery conspiracy in 1969 and on August 20 last was released from prison. Immediately upon his return, he contacted Jack Moran, private detective in Chicago. WHO has been one of his closest associates and confidant here. Moran, being opened as PC, advised that Cain requested that Moran put him to work as a front while Cain attempts to become active in organized crime here. Cain has developed a brazen attitude, and as example, when he read recent newspaper publicity that Attorney General Mitchell announced that back of organized crime in Chicago had been broken because no capable leader could be found to lead organization here. Cain told Moran, Mitchell has a new candidate now. Moran advised that immediately upon his arrival in Chicago from prison, Cain made 2 appointments. One was with Fiore Buccieri, upper echelon leader of organized crime here, and the other was with Pat Marcy, leader Chicago's First Ward Democratic Organization, with whom Cain was close to when he was working for Giancana. Purpose of meetings was for Cain to obtain job in organized crime here. Moran advised that Cain feels he could obtain top job under Ralph Pierce, upper echelon leader on Southside Chicago, whose top lieutenant, Art Markle, died 3 weeks ago. However, Cain holding out for something better according to what he told Moran. Another purpose of Cain's meetings was to obtain job for his former wife, Harriet Blake, a recording artist. This he immediately did at Mangum's Chateau, a first-class West suburban nightclub where Blake opened last night. It is definite feeling of Moran that Cain striving for a top job in organized crime and with characteristic gall feels he can get the outfit moving again without particular jeopardy to himself. Moran feels Cain would definitely take top job, although since he remains on probation until April 72, will probably wait to make too many moves until then. It is opinion of Chicago office that Moran's information is undoubtedly accurate. Cain is egotistical, sharp, intelligent, and ambitious, and close to Giancana in past. It would not be past him, in frame of mind he apparently is in, to attempt to obtain near leadership position in organized crime here and to attempt to acting director, FBI, from Chicago. Subject, Richard Cain, Chicago Teletype, 11th May 1972, and Bureau Letter. Since the date of reference teletype contact has been maintained with appropriate sources and informants in Chicago, particularly with CG 7016 CTE, who would be expected to know specifically. In an effort to develop any current information concerning the whereabouts and activity of captioned subject. All of these sources and informants have advised that there is no information available indicating that Cain has returned to the Chicago area since he left here, presumably for Mexico on May 1, 1972. CG 9561 PCI advised after having been contacted in this regard that he reached out to determine information about Cain on June 12, 1972. After contacting several sources of information, PCI advised that a long-distance phone call was reportedly from Cain. The caller stated that he would make another effort to contact the PCI within an hour. About an hour later on that date, informants stated the phone rang, and he picked up the receiver and held a long-distance overseas operator report that a call was being placed to his office on Madrid, Spain. Within a few seconds, he was talking to Cain. Cain advised him during the conversation that he was overseas and that he would be there for a lengthy period of time, inasmuch as he probably was going to set up a hotel or casino in Madrid. This PCI, who is in an excellent position to know, recalled that Cain has made several trips from Chicago to Mexico to contact Giancana. When he returned, Cain told him that Giancana is in Mexico and had plenty money and is friendly with New York people who are dealing in a big way in narcotics. PCI advised that it is obvious to him that Cain is working very closely at the present time with Giancana. PCI advised that it is his opinion that Cain is in Spain working on behalf of Giancana and that he will involve himself there in narcotics. He said the way it works, Cain will establish a front such as a hotel or casino, and after this he will work probably with the New York leadership of organized crime as a go-between for narcotics traffic between Madrid and New York. From the conversation which PCI had with Cain on June 12, 1972, the PCI feels that Cain will remain in Spain indefinitely. From the above, and since it appears certain that Cain has not returned to the Chicago area since May 1, 1972, it would appear that Cain is working on behalf of Giancana in Mexico and in Spain. Contact with logical sources and informants, particularly with CG 7016 CT and with CG 9561 PCI, are being closely maintained, and the Bureau will be kept advised of all developments. The Bureau is requested to consider furnishing the above information to legats in Mexico City and in Madrid for any information available there concerning the presence of Cain.
To Acting Director, FBI. From Legate, Madrid. Subject, Richard Cain, as known as AR. Re-Chicago letter to Bureau 18 July 1972. Pertinent portions of reference letter have been furnished to the Dirección General de Seguridad, Directorate General of Security DGS, Spanish National Police, Madrid, Spain, and the Guardia Civil GC, Spanish Civil Guard, Madrid. The DGS has been requested to attempt to verify subject's presence in Madrid, as well as determine his activities. Chicago is requested to furnish Madrid background information pertaining to Cain, particularly birth date and place, which will assist the DGS in conducting their investigation. For information of the Bureau in Chicago, BNDD Madrid has no previous record of the subject.
To Acting Director, Samuel M. Giancana. Richard Cain, also known as AR. Chicago. Re-Chicago letter July 18 last and Legat, Madrid. Letter July 27 last entitled Richard Cain. Recent contact with CG 9561 PC, close confidant of Cain, established that Cain reportedly continues to be in Madrid, Spain as of mid-August USD. PC stated he hears that Cain manages a small casino and house of prostitution there. Source advised he also learned that Cain reportedly continue in close contact with Giancana, former top leader of organized crime in Chicago, who, according to source, continues to reside in Mexico. Source again advised his info is that Cain's primary role in Madrid is to establish contacts with narcotics dealers there and in other parts of Europe and to arrange for narcotic shipments.
To Acting Director, FBI. From Legate, Madrid. Subject, Richard Cain, as known as AR. Remoulade to Bureau 27 January 1972. On 24 August 1972, the Dirección General de Seguridad, Directorate General of Security DGS, Spanish National Police, Madrid, Spain, advised that a check of all central foreigners' records had failed to disclose any information regarding the subject. The DGS further advised that their inquiries are continuing and that they would appreciate any additional background information regarding subject and, if possible, the telephone number used by subject when he reportedly called from Spain in June of 1972. Chicago is requested to furnish the above information if it is available.
Continue his travels and visit South America and Europe including Spain. She knew of no friends of Cain's except Pierre Krupensky, who Cain indicated was now in Paris. She did not know and had never met Giancana, however, she heard of him from the time she resided in Chicago with Cain before their divorce. She promised to notify this office if she heard anything further from Cain. She was aware that Cain had gone to jail, but that during the time she was married to Cain, he was working the other side of the fence and she met many prominent Chicago politicians through him. Nothing further has been heard from her, and it was determined that she and her current husband have been transferred to San Salvador. MEX 304 checked hotel records in Acapulco and advised that he located a registration for a Mr. and MRS. Richard Cain, 1334, East Flower Street, Phoenix, Arizona, staying at the Condesa del Mar, Acapulco, Mexico, in January of 72. Their travel was arranged through Jarrett's travel service. Phoenix X-287 had relayed a report that subject Cain was seen at the Condesa del Mar Hotel. Phoenix was asked to confirm this data in the case entitled, Unknown Subject, aka George Ames, the hijacking investigation. No further information has been received on Cain. Mex 170 advised September 8, 72 that apparently based on information from this office, Mexican immigration had a man assigned full-time to check entries and departures at the Mexico City International Airport, and he had been unable to locate any record of such travel for subject Cain in 1972. This is in spite of the fact that it is known Cain was in Mexico City during this period. It is not known if Cain was in contact with subject Giancana or even where Cain was staying. Mex 287 did not know of any contact between Cain and Giancana, but he has not been in direct contact with Giancana for some time. It is felt that CIA, Paris, may have some knowledge of the whereabouts of Pierre Krupensky, who formerly had an advertising agency in Mexico City. Mex 170 advised September 22, 72 that Mexico City telephone number 5-90-00-70 is listed to Aurora M. de Quiroz, Coruna 54. Colonia Alamos, Mexico City. It is noted that Mexico City telephone numbers are frequently listed in the name of a person other than the actual occupant. However, a pretext call to this number determined that the current occupant of this number is MRS. Quiroz. It is noted that both Mex 287 and Mex 34 have reported rumors that Giancana was residing in Beirut, Lebanon. However, this has never been confirmed. In addition, Mex 287 reported a rumor that subject Giancana supposedly was on a safari in Africa early in 1972. This allegedly was a photographic safari and he was accompanied by a girlfriend. Mexico City has not set a lead by LEM for the State Department Security Office to check travel by subject Giancana in Kenya because Mexico City does not have current passport data concerning the subject Giancana. It is felt that he would travel under his true name. Pretext inquiries by Mex 34 at the apartment house at Amsterdam 82, Mexico City, where subject Giancana had a penthouse, indicated that subject Giancana as Sam De Palma resided there for about 2 years but departed about June of 71. A pretext call to an architect contact resulted in the information that Giancana was in Beirut. However, this same source indicated that as of June of 72 Giancana was back in Mexico City living in a house he bought in Pedregal de San Angel. Mex 287 on regular contact most recently September 20, 72 advised that he had not been in contact with subject but knew he was in Mexico City as mutual friends have seen him. Giancana was reportedly playing golf at the Churubusco Golf Club September 17, 72. Information copies to Beirut and Madrid as information herein relates Giancana and Cain to those cities. Leads. Mexico City. At Mexico, D. F. 1. Will through Mex 170 and Mex 34 conduct investigation to identify the architect Morales described as a contact of Giancana. 2. Will attempt to identify Celso Carreto, described as Giancana's chauffeur. 3. Will through Mex 287 and other sources attempt to determine exact address for Giancana's house in Pedregal. Conducted there concerning Cain's close associate in organized crime, Sam Giancana. The legate is requested to make regular reports with copies for the Chicago office concerning the activities of Cain in Mexico. It is noted that subject was a target of the Chicago office under development under the top echelon criminal informant program on 2 occasions. One of these occasions was prior to the time that he was convicted of bank robbery in Chicago, and the other was for the period from the fall of 1971 until the late spring of 1972, after he had returned from federal prison and before he left for Mexico on May 1, 72. During that time subject was debriefed concerning his complete background in organized crime and concerning his knowledge of his associates in organized crime. The information obtained from the subject during this period of time was on a strictly confidential basis with the understanding that it would not be used against him. For this reason, information appearing in the body of this report which was obtained from the subject is protected by the use of a T symbol so that it will not be evident that this information is admissions from him. Informants. Source. CGT1 is former CG7717 PC. Date contacted. Numerous occasions during late 1971 and early 1972. Contacting agent. Special Agent William F. Romer, Jr. 2. Acting Director, FBI. Firm, Legat, Mexico City. Subject, Richard Cain, also known as AR. Mexico City has had no further contacts from MEX 334 PCI, and referenced bureau cable indicates that the subject returned to Chicago. MEX 170 has been attempting to identify the attorney Adolfo Crespo Ramirez, who allegedly was representing subject in contacts with the Bank of Mexico. However, he has been unable to identify any such attorney in appropriate directories, and correspondence directed to him has met with no reply. SARS is attempting to locate him through the post office box furnished on his correspondence. Leads. Mexico City. At Mexico, D.F. will report results of further inquiry by MEX 170 concerning subject's attorney. That during this period of time he was in contact with the reporting agent, and confirmed information set out in the body of this report that he has been in contact with Sam Giancana in Mexico. He advised that he, at that time, was in the process of merchandising a film script which he had authored, and was in the initial stages of writing a book about the Chicago Police Department, a novel. It is noted that the investigative period of this report is lengthy due to the fact that all of Cain's activity has taken place outside of the United States, and there is limited information available to the Chicago office for report purposes. Informants. SARS. CGT1 is CG9561 PC. Date contacted. May 3, 73. Contacting agent. Special Agent Frank J. Ford. SARS. CGT2 is CG6968 CTE. Date contacted. May 23, 73. Contacting agent. Special Agent John R. Bassett. SARS. CGT3 is Chuck Adams Security, Tropicana Hotel, Las Vegas, Nevada. Date contacted. August 6, 73. Contacting agent. Special Agent Charles Thomas, Jr. Las Vegas office.